Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Reflecting, debriefing, and taking part in operational learning is a vehicle to identify new or emerging risks, monitoring trends, recommending remedial actions, and promoting the best practice, as well as achieving continuous improvement in service delivery and the safety of firefighters and frontline operators worldwide. Today's incident debrief comes to us from Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service. This is an RTC on the A1M, resulting in the death of Sub-Officer Paul Maligan and injuries to a leading firefighter. This was incident number 10644 on Saturday, June 16, 2007, attended by Blue Watch Stevenage. Whilst dealing with this incident, Sub-Officer Maligan was fatally injured. Leading Firefighter 1 sustained head and leg injuries, and a Highways Agency traffic officer sustained a fractured leg. Today's podcast was in partnership with our good friends Johnny and the team over at William Wood Watches. Now, if you're not familiar by now, William Wood was the name of his grandfather. He was a firefighter in the British Fire Service for over 25 years, stationed in Newcastle on the Blue Watch. Now, his grandson Johnny is a great friend of the podcast and came up with William Wood Watches to honour his grandfather and the legacy of firefighters all around the world. Now, some pretty cool updates from the William Wood Watch team. When it comes to their chivalrous collection, this August they came out with, honestly, one of my favourite looks for it. They came out with the gun metal for the face of the watch. Now, if you go over there and look at their watches, they've of course got the Jubilee, the Triumph, the Valium, the Bronze. But if you look at the chivalrous range, this is effectively the luxury dress range. It's got that sleek case, the luxury finish, and you can wear it on absolutely any occasion. I myself, I've said on the podcast before, I'm a massive fan personally of the Valiant collection. I've got the red watch, always with the red strap. Now, they do come with a selection of straps as well. And honestly, for me, the straps is probably one of the most favourite parts of it. It really is the one that catches everybody's eye. It's what draws you into it. And when you receive your William Wood watch, that whole unboxing experience is actually kind of special. Whether or not you get the fire alarm box or the VIP roll, usually comes, I think, with 3 different straps. However, I do know, I think it is if you get the Triumph collection, which is the Swiss precision watch made in Switzerland, you actually get that really unique fire alarm box as well that comes with it. Now that thing is absolutely stunning. You know the types you see in buildings where it says break glass on the front of it? That, honestly, it's been made into this luxury leather-bound box. You open that bad boy up, you see all the straps, you see the bottom compartment where you get the encasing watch. Pretty sure it comes with the cufflinks as well. And again, if you go over to their website, williamwoodwatches.com, you'll see that this company really does support firefighters all over the world. I think to date they are over £75,000 they've contributed to firefighter charities all over the world. So head on over and check it out. Have a look at the chivalrous first. They've got a chocolate range on there, but for me, the gunmetal one, if you're going to have a look at the gunmetal, that looks absolutely fantastic. The Triumph is probably my favourite, and I'm saving up for that one at the minute, but I have got the Valiant collection myself, and I absolutely love it. Johnny and the team are really making some moves at William Wood Watches, doing some great things for our sector. Now back to the show. Firstly, we're going to run through some background on the incident debrief. On June 16, 2007, just after 9:15 p.m, Fire Control received a call to a car fire between junctions 8 and 7 on the A1M. 2 pumps from Stevenage Fire Station were mobilised. The car on fire was a burgundy-coloured Saab. It was during this incident, just after the car fire had been extinguished, a red Volkswagen Golf hatchback, travelling southbound, left the main A1M carriageway and hit the rear of the Saab. Leading Firefighter was standing out to the front rear side next to the wing mirror of the Saab, and Sub-Officer Maligan was standing at the front of the Saab looking under the bonnet. The Saab was shunted approximately 15 metres along the hard shoulder from its original position, throwing the leading firefighter into the Highways Agency traffic officer and trapping Sub-Officer Maligan underneath the front of the Saab. As part of the subsequent police investigation, Hertfordshire Constabulary attended the scene post-collision to manage the road traffic incident and immediately commenced a crash investigation. Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service cooperated with the police throughout their investigation, providing information on the safe systems of work and operational procedures which we're going to cover in today's debrief. 3 firefighters from Stevenage were interviewed as witnesses by the police to assist in their investigation. Following this incident, on the night of Saturday 23rd of June 2007, the police undertook a reconstruction of the scene and event with the cooperation of the Fire Service and Highways Agency. Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service provided the same fire appliance with another service driver, and this Highways Agency provided their vehicle to enable the reconstruction to be as accurate as possible. The police were unable to share the outcome of their crash investigation at the time of the accident investigation was produced. The identity of the drivers will of course remain unknown. We'll now move into the sequence of events on that evening. At approximately 21:16 on Saturday the 16th of June 2007, Command and Control received a 999 call from a mobile phone reporting a car on fire on the hard shoulder of the A1M at junction 8 to 7 southbound. Stevenage Appliances 230 and 231 are alerted at 21:17 respectively. The Highways Agency is also fully aware of the incident at 21:19 and was informed by the police. 231 booked mobile at 21:20 to the northbound unaffected carriageway with Leading Firefighter 2 as the officer in charge and a crew of 4. 230 booked mobile at 21:20 to the affected carriageway southbound with Sub-Officer Maligan in charge of a crew of 4. As 231 approached the northbound carriageway of the A1M, Leading Firefighter 2 confirms that there are 2 cars just on the motorway southbound and radios to Sub-Officer Maligan in 230, now approaching on the slip road, that it is the nearest car to them, the burgundy Saab, which is the one on fire. 230 are at this time on the slip road travelling south to join the A1M, and Firefighter 1, the driver, sees the second car with hazards and people and smoke coming from the bonnet of the first car, the burgundy Saab. Firefighters subsequently recall the second car as possibly being a silver Nissan Micra. 230 books in attendance at 21:24. Firefighter 5 states that when Leading Firefighter 2 radioed 230 was too close for them to pull in behind the vehicle on fire, so Firefighter 1 parks the appliance in front of the Saab 6 lengths, estimates 15 metres away from the front of the Saab. The blue lights are on. When parked, Leading Firefighter 1 says he can see the Saab has a small fire under the bonnet and it's mainly steam plus oil dripping from the bonnet. Firefighter 1 gets his fire kit off and wears his high visibility jacket because traffic is heavy and he stands at the pump. Firefighter 5 takes off a BA set from the near side of the fire appliance whilst Leading Firefighter 1 and Sub-Officer Maligan proceed to the vehicle on fire. Firefighter 5 runs the hose reel out on the near side and takes it to the vehicle. By the time he reaches the car on fire, 231 have arrived. 231 books in attendance at 21:25. The appliance parks in the fend-off position at approximately 45-degree angle, across the slip road and hard shoulder behind the Saab. Leading Firefighter 2 radios Sub-Officer Maligan to ask if he needs assistance. Sub-Officer Maligan replies no, the crew remain on the appliance. Sub-Officer Maligan is wearing his helmet and also an officer in charge surcoat over his fire tunic. Leading Firefighter 1 says that Sub-Officer Maligan is talking to the vehicle owner whilst Leading Firefighter 1 opened the bonnet of the car for Firefighter 5 to put the hose reel on the minor fire. Firefighter 5 is not under air and extinguishes the fire fairly quickly. Leading Firefighter 2 sees the Highways Agency vehicle approaching on the northbound carriageway. Sub-Officer Maligan then radios Leading Firefighter 2 that the Highways Agency is here, you might as well get yourself away and they can move into your position. In the appliance offside mirror, Firefighter 2 also sees the Highways Agency vehicle coming up the slip road of junction 8 southbound. Leading Firefighter 1 asks him if he wants to get the details of the vehicle and Leading Firefighter 1 walks to the appliance 230 where the owner is stood. Leading Firefighter 1 removes his helmet and gloves to talk to and write down the information. It is whilst Leading Firefighter 1 is talking to the owner that Sub-Officer Maligan radios Leading Firefighter 2 and 231 and tells them to go. At 21:28, the Highways Agency arrive on scene and book in attendance with their control. There are a crew of 2 traffic officers, 1 female, 1 male. They park behind the Saab some distance away in their fend-off position suitable for this type of incident. 231 then books mobile returning and leaves the incident down the A1 towards junction 7. Firefighter 1 asks Sub-Officer Maligan if cones are wanted and Sub-Officer Maligan tells Firefighter 1 that the Highways Agency will do that. Firefighter 1 is then standing at the rear of the pump acting as a safety officer. The Highways Agency officer exits their vehicle and goes to the rear of the Highways Agency vehicle, and Highway Agency traffic officer speaks to Sub-Officer Maligan and states they will get the car moved when it's cooled down. Leading Firefighter 1 walks with the owner to the rear of the Saab where the Highways Agency officer are standing and introduces the owner to the Highways officer. All 3 individuals, including the owner of the Saab, now stand behind the barrier on the hard shoulder to discuss recovery of the vehicle. The Highways officer approaches the scene of the Saab because he feels that the vehicle needs moving immediately, due to the location and the fact the road is unlit. He tells the other officer this from the Highways Agency and she radios the Highways Agency control to ask them to arrange this at 21:30. At 21:30, Firefighter 1 sends an informative message to control from 230. Sub-Officer Maligan, small fire and engine compartment, 1 BA, 1 hose reel in use, tactical mode Oscar. After checking the engine, Firefighter 5 asks Sub-Officer Maligan if he's okay to remove his breathing apparatus and return to 230. Firefighter 5 restows his breathing apparatus set in the rear of the appliance, which is a spare appliance, provided because Stevenage's main appliance has been serviced. Firefighter 1 is preparing to send a stop message from the officer in charge seat. Leading Firefighter 1 walks back towards 230 and Sub-Officer Maligan is now standing at the front of the Saab looking at the damage. Firefighter 1 says Sub-Officer Maligan points to the engine block and says, "There's something down there." Leading Firefighter 1 moves towards the front of the Saab to talk and look at what Sub-Officer Maligan is doing. Leading Firefighter 1 is standing next to the near side wing mirror, and the other Highways Agency officer is standing next to Leading Firefighter 1. Leading Firefighter 1 hears a sudden bang and a massive noise as he recalls seeing blackness, light, black, light, black. It goes all quiet, and now he is laying in the road feeling confused, with fluid and blood running down his face. He moves his left arm and felt a curb and moved himself halfway onto that for safety. Firefighter 5 is getting kit together when he hears the bang and says Firefighter 1, what was that? He is aware that something went past the appliance. Leading Firefighter 1 sees Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 5 get off 230. Firefighter 5 sees the firefighter laying on the hard shoulder some distance away from where the fire vehicle originally was and a different car on the motorway. The male highway traffic officer has been knocked over the barrier by Leading Firefighter 1 being thrown into him. Firefighter 5 goes over to Leading Firefighter 1, speaks to him and confirms he is okay, and then scans the scene looking for Sub-Officer Maligan. Firefighter 5 says he didn't realise the initial fire vehicle, the Saab, was now right behind 230, but then he sees the new vehicle is involved, a red hatchback Volkswagen Golf, heavily damaged and facing the wrong way up the motorway. On getting closer to the Saab, he sees Sub-Officer Maligan and assesses his condition. Firefighter 1 initially sees that the Saab has been shunted into the lane 1. Leading Firefighter 1 is laying on the hard shoulder and Firefighter 5 goes over to him. Sub-Officer Maligan is under the Saab and Firefighter 1 goes over to Sub-Officer Maligan, but he isn't responding and he's obviously in a bad way. At 21:35, Firefighter 1 returns to the appliance and sends a priority message. Collision on A1, make pumps 2, ambulance is required, RTC involving appliance, persons trapped. The crew of 231 hear this priority message and they mobilise back to the A1. As Firefighter 1 climbs down from 230, the owner of the Saab has run up to the appliance and is standing right next to him. The driver is in shock but uninjured, so Firefighter 1 sent him to wait with the vehicle. Firefighter 1 later clarified that he sent his driver towards the unknown car, identified later as possibly a silver Nissan Micra, parked further down the carriageway, south of the incident. Fire control mobilises 231 to return at 21:35 and alerts Hitchin 320 at 21:35. 21:35, the female Highways Agency officer sends an urgent assistance message via her handheld radio to Highways Agency Control that a fire engine has been hit and people are injured. The whole carriageway is closed. The female Highways Agency officer is not injured and is instructed by Firefighter 5 to fend off as much of the motorway as possible. A car has already been stopped in lane 2 and the dual carriageway, and the Highways officer instructs this car to remain there. In this car is an off-duty London paramedic who gets out offering help. Firefighter 1 approaches Leading Firefighter 1 with the first aid bag and gives him a bandage. Leading Firefighter 1 tells him he is okay and to help Firefighter 5, who he can see is with Sub-Officer Maligan. Firefighter 1 approaches the Highways officer, who are now standing together, and checks they're okay, and they instruct him to help his colleagues. At some point after the crash, Leading Firefighter 1 remembers talking on the radio to Leading Firefighter 2, but cannot recall the time or what was said. Station Officer 2 is alerted by the collision by their fire control and is mobile at 21:37. At 21:38, fire control inform the ambulance service. Also at 21:38, 231 books mobile to the incident. The uninjured female highway agency officer continues to send messages to their control centre updating on the situation, and the Highways Agency control liaison between Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service Command and Control, the ambulance service and the police. At 21:39, Baldock's second appliance 320 books mobile to the incident with a crew of 5. The driver of the VW Golf remained in the car. Firefighter 1 checks on this driver. Firefighter 5 goes to the appliance to get the RTC kit off, Lucas power pack, ram support, etc. Firefighter 1 returns to the appliance and collects the spreaders. Firefighter 5 thinks that 230 is too close to the Saab, so he gets it and moves it forward about 8 to 10 feet. An off-duty London paramedic held up in the stationary traffic assists Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 5 with Sub-Officer Maligan. The paramedic advises them that Sub-Officer Maligan needs getting out, and Firefighter 1 puts the spreaders under the near side front wheel and lifts the vehicle sufficiently for the paramedic to commence CPR. 231 arrive at the incident at 21:40. They park in the fend-off position across both lanes of the A1M motorway. Leading Firefighter 2 notices that Highways Agency vehicle had not moved into their original fend-off position. Leading Firefighter 2 gets off the appliance and sees a firefighter laying on the ground with a bandage to his head, and Sub-Officer Maligan with an ambulance woman working on him. Firefighter 3 gets off the appliance and has a quick look at the vehicle in lane 1 and can see the driver upright and calling out. He goes over to Leading Firefighter 1. Leading Firefighter 1 is aware of the arrival of 231 and Firefighter 3 gives him another bandage to put on his head. Firefighter 3 sees Sub-Officer Maligan under the front of the Saab. As he gets closer, he can see Sub-Officer Maligan is trapped and is not breathing. Firefighter 3 assists the off-duty London paramedic, inserting an airway and using a bag valve and mask with the paramedic during chest compression. Firefighter 4 goes to Leading Firefighter 1, who tells her Sub-Officer Maligan is under the car, and she sees Firefighter 3 and the paramedic working on Sub-Officer Maligan. She fetches the oxygen mask at Firefighter 3 request, and then she collects air mats. At 21:42, Leading Firefighter 2 sends an informative message from 231, priority, make pumps full. Firefighter 2 sends a message by mobile phone to control, stating there are 2 firefighters on the roadway and an ambulance and police are required. Leading Firefighter 2 gets the crew to provide more blocks, and he checks the driver off on the second vehicle collision, the VW Golf, who is complaining of pains to his chest, but appears okay, so Leading Firefighter 2 goes to speak to Firefighter 3. At 21:42, Station Officer 2 arrives and sees the orange lights of the Highways Agency vehicle and the blue lights of the fire appliance further up the road. Station Officer 2 sees Leading Firefighter 1 on the hard shoulder and immediately requests control mobilise the attendance of a district officer due to the seriousness of the incident. Leading Firefighter 2 approaches Firefighter 3, who advises him that they need to get Sub-Officer Maligan out fast. The rest of the Stevenage crew are working to stabilise the vehicle and place air mats whilst Firefighter 3 continues to work on Sub-Officer Maligan. Sub-Officer Maligan begins breathing and gags on the airway, but then stops breathing again. Another paramedic crew arrive and they take over from Firefighter 3, so he returns to Leading Firefighter 1. Station Officer 2 is briefed by Leading Firefighter 2, and Station Officer 2 sees that Sub-Officer Maligan is being attended to by 2 ambulance personnel and efforts are being made to raise the vehicle to release Sub-Officer Maligan. Station Officer 2 ascertains Leading Firefighter 1 is conscious and talking. At 21:43, Leading Firefighter 2 sends an informative message requesting the RSU. Leading Firefighter 2 sees Hitchin approaching and radios them for blocks. At 21:44, 320 Hitchin is in attendance. Sub-Officer 1 with a crew of 5, Firefighter 6, Driver Firefighter 7, Firefighter 8 and Leading Firefighter 3. Station Officer 2 is now Incident Commander and appoints Sub-Officer 1 to be his Command Support Officer. 320 is made the control point and fireground radio contact maintained through Firefighter 6. Hitchin crew provide blocks and air mats and assist Firefighter 4 and Firefighter 5 to raise the Saab. Bulldog 310 is alerted and books mobile at 21:45. At 21:46, Hatfield RSU is mobile to the incident, with Officer in Charge Leading Firefighter 4 and Firefighter 9. Whilst Firefighter 3 is dealing with Leading Firefighter 1, he notices that the driver of the Golf is slumped over his steering wheel, so he goes over, opens the door and raises his head. Firefighter 3 looks for assistance, but everyone is working on the Saab. Station Officer 2 briefly comes over and advises Firefighter 3 that other crews are coming. At 21:46, an ambulance arrives on scene, and at 21:48, 2 police units arrive on scene. At 21:49, Firefighter 2 sends an informative message by mobile phone from 231 for Leading Firefighter 2, which control logs as 2 cars in collision on motorway, 2 firefighters injured, plus 1 civilian suffering from head injuries and trapped. Lucas air mats in use, Station Officer 2 in charge, make ambulances 3. At 21:50, Hitchin 321 is in attendance, OIC Sub-Officer 2, Firefighter 10 and Firefighter 11. Station Officer 2 instructs Sub-Officer 2 to stay with Leading Firefighter 1, who is laying motionless and has a lot of blood around his head. Sub-Officer 2 asks Firefighter 11 to get the first aid kit, and Leading Firefighter 3 comes over to assist. At 21:50, District Officer 2 arrives and can see the activity, and that Station Officer 2 is heavily involved in command and control. District Officer 2 liaises with the Police Inspector 1, who appraises him of the situation and advises him that there are 4 persons in varying degrees of injuries, 2 firefighters, 1 highways agency and 1 public. The focus of attention is on the 2 firefighters and male occupant of the VW Golf. Station Officer 2 gives District Officer 2 a concise briefing, and District Officer 2 advises him he is taking over Incident Command and obtained an Incident Command surcoat from Leading Firefighter 2. District Officer 2 advises Station Officer 2 to continue to coordinate within the rescue area. District Officer 2 observes the urgent activity surrounding Sub-Officer Maligan's treatment. At 21:52, Baldock 1st Appliance 310 in attendance, with Sub-Officer 3. Firefighter 11 sends a radio message to Baldock 310 requesting their air mats urgently. He fetches a second spinal board and takes it to the scene of the operations, but as there are a lot of people working on the Saab, Firefighter 11 goes to assist the firefighter attending the casualty in VW Golf. The casualty is not trapped and wants to get out of the vehicle, so the firefighters explain he needs to stay there and be checked by the paramedics. Sub-Officer 3 reports to Station Officer 2 and sees firefighters and ambulance staff attending to the injured firefighter on the hard shoulder. Baldock crew are asked to provide air mats urgently, and Sub-Officer 3 returns to 310 and gets Leading Firefighter 6 and Firefighter 13 to bring equipment to the main scene of operation. On arrival, the gear is no longer required, so Sub-Officer 3 goes to the other vehicle, the VW Golf, to check the situation where Firefighter 3 and an ambulance technician are dealing with the driver of the vehicle, who is injured but not physically trapped. Firefighter 3 is relieved by Bulldog Firefighter, and Firefighter 3 assists the paramedic in applying a stiff neck collar to the casualty. At 21:53, control requests 3 ambulances. District Officer 2 checks through the paramedics assisting the driver over the VW Golf, and they indicate to District Officer 2 they do not need additional assistance, confirming that the driver is not trapped and that they are stabilising him. Sub-Officer 2 gets a spinal board from an ambulance and a stretcher and takes them to the Saab. Several firefighters are assisting in the removal of Sub-Officer Maligan. The vehicle is raised and Sub-Officer Maligan is slid out and put onto a spinal board, where the ambulance crews work and try to stabilise him. Sub-Officer 2 along with 3 firefighters hold the stretcher with Sub-Officer Maligan on it whilst the ambulance services get the straps on the stretcher. At 21:58, Hatfield RSU is in attendance, with 1 leading firefighter and 1 firefighter. At 2200, an informative message from 320 is sent. Further information. Station Officer 2, details as previous, steady progress being made. Tactical mode, Oscar. Sub-Officer Maligan is conveyed to Lister Hospital. Firefighter 1 goes to the Highways Agency, who are still next to the crash barrier, and gives them a bottle of water from the appliance. Firefighter 1 learns that one of the Highways Agency officers is injured, and he informs a member of the ambulance service. Leading Firefighter 3 goes to Leading Firefighter 1, who is now lying alone on the hard shoulder. She sees a dressing has been put on his head, and she and Leading Firefighter 6 stabilise him with a stiff neck collar and oxygen. They cut off Leading Firefighter 1's fire kit and move him to a more comfortable position. Firefighter 7 points out that another man is still trapped by his injuries in his car, the VW Golf. And Leading Firefighter 3 instructs Firefighter 7 to gather resources and start the extrication of this driver. Firefighter 11 is chocking the Golf and checks the hose reel, which is not charged, so he traces it back to the Stevenage Appliance 230 and asks the Stevenage firefighter to charge it. The Stevenage firefighter returns and says it's not possible. Firefighter 1 states that the Leading Firefighter 1 has been laying on top of it and the hose reel has been used for the car fire. Firefighter 11 runs out a hose reel from 320 and asks Firefighter 6 to engage the pump and charge the reel. At some point, Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 13 from Bulldog get the hose reel from the side of 230 and charge it ready for use. At 22:05, Leading Firefighter 2 sends an informative message by mobile phone from 231. District Officer 2, now officer in charge. 1 firefighter released and being taken to hospital by ambulance. 1 firefighter still trapped, expected to be released soon. Driver of other vehicle still trapped by injuries. Ambulance is still working. Leading Firefighter 1 is moved onto a stretcher and handed over to the ambulance and transported to Lister Hospital. More paramedics arrive and they discuss how to remove the casualty from the Golf, deciding to bring him out on a spinal board through the rear of the hatchback. 5 firefighters work to remove the driver from the VW Golf on the spinal board through the rear hatchback. Firefighter 10 coordinates with the ambulance until the casualty from the Golf is transferred to Lister Hospital. District Officer 2 liaises with Station Officer 2 regarding the welfare of Stevenage crew and agreed to get them away from the incident as soon as possible and discuss securing the scene for investigation purposes. At 22:07, Sub-Officer 1 sends an informative message from 320 that a flexi-duty officer is required at Stevenage Fire Station to liaise and that occupational health needs to be informed of 2 firefighters injured. District Officer 2 takes a call from the ACO and appraises him of the situation. District Officer 2 liaises with the paramedic press officer, other paramedics, police officers and firefighters. The ACO arrives at the incident at 22:13. The DO is approached by a police inspector who informs him that the hospital has informed him of Sub-Officer Maligan's condition is not good and that he is not expected to pull through. The ACO is nearby talking on his mobile phone, so the DO interrupts his phone call to advise the ACO of this message. The ACO leaves the incident to collect Sub-Officer Maligan's wife and take her to the hospital. At 22:16, Station Officer 3 arrives at the incident with Station Officer 5, who is off duty, but they leave to go to Lister Hospital where Sub-Officer Maligan has been taken. At 22:17, the Highways Agency traffic officer is taken to hospital as a precaution. At 22:19, 320 sends an informative message from District Officer 2, requesting a flexi-duty officer to attend Lister Hospital. An officer required for the incident investigation at the scene and clarifies the names of the firefighters involved. At 22:28, Stevenage crews leave the scene on 231 to return to Stevenage Fire Station. All casualties have been removed from the scene and police inspector speaks to the district officer again and advises him of the bad news that Sub-Officer Maligan has passed away at the hospital. The stop message goes in at 23:28. Sierra 01, 1 person code 1, 3 persons code 2. This concludes the timeline of the events for this incident. Next, we'll quickly cover some of the accident investigation notes and how they were drawn together. At 22:04 on the night of the 16th of June 2007, Station Officer 1 was alerted by Command and Control and instructed to attend Incident 10644 in order to carry out the initial accident investigation and gather evidence on behalf of Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service. Station Officer 1 liaised on scene with Station Officer 2 and Divisional Officer 2, who had been mobilised to the incident and briefed him. He also liaised with the police constable, the officer carrying out the crash investigation. On the 17th of June 2007, the Health and Safety Executive was informed of the incident. However, the Health and Safety Executive Inspector for the area explained that the Health and Safety Executive does not regard such an incident to be reportable because it is a road traffic accident and as such is not considered by the HSE to be an injury at work. The Strategic Leadership Group of Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service made a decision to undertake an internal accident investigation, and this was led by the ACO, who appointed divisional officers and health and safety managers to carry this out. These sorts of processes involve a tested method of ascertaining a sequence of events in detail using the following sources of information. Number 1. Contemporaneous notes from those firefighters who attended the incident: Stevenage, Hitchin, Baldock and Letchworth, and the Hatfield Rescue Support Unit. Number 2. Contemporaneous notes of the officers who attended the incident. Number 3. Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service Command and Control Log. Number 4. Taped recordings of telephone calls and radio messages to Command and Control. Number 5. Highways Agency Control Log. Number 6. The Highways Agency Traffic Officer account of the incident. And finally, number 7. The Highways Agency Hot Debrief. With regard to statistics, the Highways Agency National Statistics reveal that the previous 18 months before this incident, there had been 12 incidents involving Highways Agency traffic officers working on roads across the country, but to date had been no fatalities. However, for a 5-year period from 2000 to 2004, accidents on the hard shoulder claimed the lives of 67 people and a total of 950 were injured. Although there have been no reported fatalities involving UK Fire and Rescue personnel whilst working on roadways, on the 25th of February 2007, in Ayr, a firefighter from Limerick County Fire Service and a Garda National Police officer were killed by a speeding motorist whilst dealing with a road traffic collision. Next, we're going to cover some of the operational procedures that relate to this type of incident. What we're going to cover is an abridgment of the national and local procedural guidance relating to the fire and rescue service when attending incidents on the roadway, and in particular on motorways. It also presents an overview of the role of the Highways Agency and how it operates alongside the fire and rescue service at any such incident. We will also seek to provide a detailed operational account of incident number 10644, leading up to the road traffic collision that subsequently led to the death of Sub-Officer Paul Mallaghan and the serious injury of Leading Firefighter 1, a Highways Agency traffic officer and a member of the public. Firstly, we look at nationally agreed fire service procedures for incidents on roadways. Now, the Fire and Rescue Service Manual Volume 2, entitled Fire Service Operations, Incidents Involving Rescue from Road Vehicles, was issued to Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service in May 2007 under the authority of the Department of Committees of Local Government, DCLG. The manual is designed to promote current best practice and reflects the most up-to-date information sourced from vehicle specialists. The manual is used in conjunction with the policy guidance of individual fire and rescue services all across the country. It replaced the guidance provided in Manual of Firemanship, Book 12, Chapter 3, and also Fire and Rescue Service Manual 4, Foundation Training and Development, Chapter 4. The manual provides detailed guidance in areas such as vehicle design and construction, dealing with incidents, safety procedures, operational procedures, extrication equipment, medical considerations and trauma care, and integrated personal development systems. Significantly, Chapter 4 of the manual provides guidance on motorway procedures. Chapter 4.4 gives general details on the makeup of carriageways, junctions and interchanges, service areas, emergency crossings, emergency telephones, marker posts, motorway crash barriers, including the types of barriers in use. It provides guidance when approaching an incident on the motorway and position of a fire appliances and other responders. This guidance is the same as the guidance that appears in the Policing Motorways 2006 manual produced on behalf of the Association of Chief Police Officers, ACPO. It also provides guidance on fend-off positions for fire appliances and coning, including signage and the use of emergency lighting when attending an incident. It details the responsibility of the police in conjunction with Highways Agency traffic officers to provide a safe working area for other services. It states that subsequent emergency services arriving at the incident will be directed by the police to the safest position to park their vehicle, considering the dangers of passing traffic and the need for those attending to perform their roles. It goes on to state that if the police are not in attendance on arrival of the fire and rescue service, an appliance should be positioned as a warning to approaching traffic in a fend-off position, 50 metres to the rear of the incident. This is the distance recommended to give adequate warning to fast-moving traffic and should be adhered to wherever possible. Further, it gives detailed guidance on what the procedures to adopt when attending an incident on the motorway. It states that there are two main methods of positioning emergency service vehicles in a carriageway. Both of the following procedures are in use by the police and local planning and will assist in the identifying that one of these is put in place and that the local police force will adopt it. The first option is in line. The emergency vehicle is parallel to the running lanes of the carriageway. This maximises rear-facing lighting due to the size of the car compared to the carriageway. Patrols should be aware that to the approaching traffic, the stationary inline vehicle could appear to be moving with the traffic. Therefore, the second option is to fend off. The vehicle is angled, pointing front end towards the carriageway. This method will effectively fill the lane to be closed and will act as a visual reinforcement to the cone taper. It will appear stationary to the approaching vehicle, but the effectiveness of the lighting will be reduced. The Fire Service Manual also provides detailed instructions for use of coning off and signage for the emergency lighting. The rest of the debrief covers areas around operational risk assessment, crew safety, as well as areas around personal protective clothing and equipment. One note is that the fire tunic has reflected strips on the arms, body and legs. This complies with the legal requirements to ensure safety during working on roads when worn with a reflective high visibility Serco or tabard. In addition, for use when working at road traffic collisions or car fires, each fire appliance carries 6 high visibility tabards or Sercos. These conform to the appropriate standard when worn with fire kit. According to the notes in the debrief and further inquiries, all firefighters wore their PPE, full fire kit, in addition to their high visibility Sercos. It is almost certain from witness statements that Sub-Officer Maligan was carrying his fire helmet in his hand at the time of the VW Golf collided with the Saab. Sub-Officer Maligan's fire helmet was photographed at the scene on the incident of 2 locations, once on top of the generator and once on the OIC seat in the fire appliance. It was impounded as part of the investigation and given to the police as an exhibit on the 21st of June 2007. According to the police, Sub-Officer Maligan was also wearing his OIC high visibility Serco over his fire tunic in accordance with the regulations and guidance and procedure. The police took Sub-Officer Maligan's fire kit, fire boots, leggings, polo shirt, trousers and high visibility Serco from Lister Hospital as exhibits. Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and well-being. Now we get a lot of messages and emails into the podcast around firefighter health and fitness, whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services. We get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. There are focuses around strength endurance and overall conditioning, all achievable and relevant to our roles. Now we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels and they're not a prescriptive weight or a one size fits all BS. We also take into consideration all the fitness testing for initial application and also for current firefighters who want to maintain and progress their fitness levels. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. The system has a built-in ability to adjust easily depending on the equipment you have available, your fatigue levels, or if you're coming off busy-ass night shifts and you haven't got a lot of time to work out. You can record your results, log your weights, your body measurements. We've got all the facilities to do that. The system is yours to use how you want to train. We've taken all the fluff and the gimmicks and the BS away from most of the rubbish that you see out there. And this is designed by experienced operational firefighters and qualified people, including myself, with members of the team available to contact throughout the time you are within us in the program. If you ever get stuck, if you're starting to struggle, and also to celebrate those wins and achievements with you. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, have a glance in the link for the podcast. Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show. Finally, we'll cover some of the findings of this debrief. Although there is a clear and comprehensive guidance for fire crews working on motorway carriageways, there appears to be no specific operational procedures for fire service vehicles working on a hard shoulder. It should also be noted that the Fire Service Generic Risk Assessment 4.1, Incidents Involving Transport Systems, roads, was issued prior to arrangements being put in place for the Highways Agency to manage the road network. National guidance from the Fire and Rescue Service Manual Volume 2 provides direction of the safest approach to take to incidents on the motorway, how to fend off if an incident occurs within the carriageway. It does not, however, give explicit guidance on incidents that may occur on carriageways that merge with or lead to motorways, or provide explicit procedures for incidents on hard shoulders. Many calls to car fires on a motorway tend to be either of a minor nature or false alarms. Due to the potential traffic disruption caused by lane closures, fire crews will assess the nature of the call prior to deciding on any lane closures. If the vehicle is on the hard shoulder and fully involved in fire, the fire service may need to shut both the lane and the hard shoulder and at least one other lane to protect the firefighters working safely. The incident commander will risk assess this and make decisions based on the scene. Guidance from the Fire and Rescue Service Manual Volume 2 states that when the fire service attend a working road traffic collision at any location, including motorways, it is expected that an action circle extending outwards for 2 to 5 meters in every direction will be put in place. This circle provides a 360-degree view of the scene and saves valuable time by allowing the fire service personnel to develop an adequate plan while operating safely. The investigation shows that the incident commander, as well as all crews, appear to have followed the standard operating procedures at this incident. It is almost certain that the incident commander, Sub-Officer Paul Maligan, had removed his fire helmet as he attempted to view inside the damaged car. He was carrying his fire helmet in his hand at the time of the collision. Leading Firefighter 1 was not wearing his helmet or gloves because he had taken them off to speak to the driver of the Saab, and this directly led to him receiving serious head injuries. However, all fire crews in both 230 and 231 fire appliances were rigged in the appropriate PPE clothing for the equipment for this nature to ensure high conspicuity and were complying with the appropriate standards. This brings this incident debrief to a close. Special thanks go to the Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Service for a detailed report into this fatal and unfortunate incident involving a member of our UK Fire and Rescue Service. Whilst roadways across the world become busier and busier and the distractions within our vehicles become even greater, the hope of this debrief is to encourage all members of the UK Fire and Rescue Service, as well as those of other emergency services required to attend this type of incident, to continue to reinforce and maintain situational awareness, as had been the case at this incident. Whilst unfortunate, it is worth acknowledging that this type of incident could happen to any operational crew in the UK. The podcast is passionate about sharing lessons learned from many debriefs across the world. If you have documentation, information relating to, or links to any debriefs you'd like shared on the podcast, please send them into the Firefighters Podcast at gmail.com. Our sincere hope is that as we recall, learn from, and also acknowledge the actions of those who have gone before us, we'll keep frontline responders and firefighters safer as they carry out their heroic acts on the front line every single day. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. We'll see you next time. The Firefighters Podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.